Russians? This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we talk about manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Big game or big manipulation? How Russian TV is turning the drone crisis into a tool to pressure Europe. On the evening of September 11th, the Russian program Big Game once again demonstrated how the propaganda conveyor works. A real threat to European security is turned into a story about panic and provocations, and the responsibility is shifted to Ukraine and Europe itself. From drones to hysteria. From the very beginning, the host set the tone. The drones that flew into Poland are called of unknown origin, and the reaction of Warsaw and Brussels is hysteria. Europe is shown as a nervous, unbalanced player, while Moscow and Minsk allegedly act coolly and calmly. This technique is familiar to anyone who follows the Russian media space, to devalue the anxiety of the victims of aggression and turn it into a caricature. After all, to acknowledge the fact of aggression means to acknowledge the Kremlin's responsibility. Trump as a restrained hero. A special role in the program is given to Donald Trump. His reaction, maybe it's a mistake, is presented as an example of wise de-escalation. The contrast is obvious. Europe, according to the talk show, is hysterical, and America, led by Trump, maintains common sense. In reality, this restraint signals to Moscow. Washington is not ready to react quickly. For Europe, this is an alarming sign, but on Russian air, it is turned into proof. The US is supposedly tired of other people's problems and is ready to shift responsibility for security to the Europeans. Ukraine is to blame. To completely blur Russia's responsibility, the studio voices the version. The drones could have been under Kiev's control. The goal is provocation for the sake of new arms supplies. This is a classic Kremlin propaganda scheme, to sow doubt, to put forward an alternative truth without evidence. The viewer is told that even if drones fell on Poland, it is not a fact that it was Russia. And if it is not a fact, then NATO has no right to a tough response. Poland as a pressuring neighbour. The Great Game pays special attention to Poland. Warsaw is portrayed as a country that is playing out the situation in order to knock money out of the EU. A transparent hint. Poland is not a defender of Europe, but a cunning player that hides behind a threat for its own benefit. This narrative is important to the Kremlin to sow mistrust between European allies. If Paris or Berlin perceive Warsaw as a panic-monger, solidarity within the EU and NATO will be undermined. Europe as a victim of blackmail. At the end, the program draws a moral. If Europe is afraid, then let it return to the Russia-NATO Act of 1997 and refuse to strengthen the eastern flank. The logic is simple. A step back in defense is a guarantee of peace. But Europe already knows the price of such proposals. Russia was preparing an invasion of Ukraine under promises of not escalating the situation. And it is not our fault that Europe, having gathered once in a century, came to us to get what we deserved. Well, and as a result of the lost wars, Russia expanded. I would even call it a security buffer zone. In fact, if we look at the map of Russia, many territories became part of our state because we were forced to do so. And I think that we should not tempt fate with a Western state once again. Russia is committed to peace, and as we know, if you want peace, prepare for war. Therefore, military exercises with our Belarusian colleagues are designed to strengthen peace in Europe and in the world as a whole. Well, and to prepare for peace, we must prepare for peace. Today, we are really watching what is happening at the 11th St. Petersburg International Forum of United Cultures. Why is this important for Europe? This program is not just a TV show. It is a pressure tool, designed for a European audience as well well. The theses hysteria, Kiev's provocation, US fatigue, cunning Poland, all of them are addressed specifically to us. The goal is obvious: to divide the Allies, reduce trust in NATO, and prepare the ground for the next aggression. It is important for Europeans to understand: when Moscow laughs at hysteria, it is at the same time demonstrating strength. When it accuses Ukraine, it is preparing new strikes. When it talks about returning to 1997, it dreams of returning Europe to the world of spheres of influence. You were on the program Empire of Lies. See you soon.